Dad hooked up with my fiancée, and now she's carrying his child, but they actually think I should raise their love child. So I took my brutal revenge. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Obligatory throwaway account because this story involves real people who might see this. Guys, I need to get this off my chest because what happened to me over the past year has been absolutely insane. By the time you finish reading this, you'll understand why I had to get revenge on two people who completely destroyed my trust, and how I made sure they got exactly what they deserved. This is going to be long as hell, but I promise it's worth reading to the end. The revenge part is chef's kiss perfect, and the way these two pieces of shit got their comeuppance will restore your faith in karma. I'm 26, work as a heavy equipment mechanic at Morrison Construction here in Ohio. Make about $78,000 a year, which isn't bad for someone who didn't go to college. I've always been the type who works hard, saves money, and minds my own business. Never been into drama or bullshit, just wanted to build a good life for myself without depending on anyone else. I bought my house when I was 23 with money I'd saved up working construction through high school and community college. Took me 5 years of 60-hour work weeks, living with roommates, eating ramen, and driving a beat-up Honda Civic, but I did it. Nothing fancy, just a solid 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood with a 2-car garage where I could work on cars. No mortgage, which I was proud as hell about. Most guys my age are drowning in student debt or living in their parents' basements, but I was smart with my money and had something to show for it. The house needed work when I bought it. Previous owner was an old guy who'd let things slide. I spent my weekends fixing everything myself. New flooring, updated electrical, painted every room, landscaped the yard. By the time I was done, it was worth probably $40,000 more than I paid for it. I'm good with my hands, and I take pride in doing things right. My family situation is pretty simple but tragic. My dad, Robert, is 54, owns Chen's Plumbing, a company he built from nothing over the past 20 years. Started with him and a beat-up van. Now he's got 12 employees, a shop, and multiple service trucks. Guy's worth probably $2 to $3 million now, drives a brand new F-150 King Ranch that costs more than most people make in a year, lives in a big house on Lake Erie with a boat dock and everything. Real American dream success story. My mom Sarah died from breast cancer when I was 16. That shit was brutal, watching her waste away over 8 months while the medical bills piled up, even with insurance. Dad sold our house and moved us into a smaller place to pay for her treatments. She fought hard, but cancer doesn't give a shit how good of a person you are. Lost her junior year of high school, which fucked me up pretty bad for a while. After mom died, it was just me and dad. We became really close. Had to, you know? He taught me everything about working with tools, being responsible, treating people right, honoring your word. We'd work on cars together in the garage, go fishing on weekends, watch football, and eat pizza. He never tried to replace mom or pretend like everything was fine, but he made sure I knew I could count on him no matter what. Dad never remarried, but he dated around some after a few years. Always younger women, nothing too serious. I used to give him shit about it. Dad, she's younger than me. But I figured he deserved to have some fun. He worked his ass off building his business and could spend his money however he wanted. Plus, he was a good-looking guy for his age, kept in shape, had money. Women liked him. The thing about my dad was that he was old school. Believed in family loyalty above everything else. Blood is thicker than water, he'd always say. Family sticks together no matter what. He'd helped me buy my house by co-signing the loan when I was 23 and had limited credit. Gave me advice about work, relationships, life in general. I respected the hell out of him and thought he felt the same way about me. Shows how wrong you can be about people. Now here's where the story really starts. About 3.5 years ago, I met this girl Jessica at Murphy's Sports Bar. This place I'd go to sometimes after work to unwind. They had good food, cold drinks, decent atmosphere. Not too loud, not too crowded, just a place where working guys could relax. Jessica was waitressing there, and she was absolutely gorgeous. I'm talking 9 out of 10 territory. Blonde hair, tall, great body, pretty face. Way out of my league, honestly, but she seemed to notice me when I'd come in. Always made sure to take my table, remembered what I liked to order, smiled a lot. I'm not the most confident guy with women, but she made it easy. She was 24, had some college, but never finished her degree in communications or something equally useless. always complaining about money problems when we'd chat. Student loans crushing her, shitty apartment with 3 roommates, car breaking down, could barely afford groceries after paying rent. The whole struggling young woman thing that makes guys want to help out. I felt bad for her, you know? Here's this beautiful, sweet girl working her ass off for tips, stressed about money all the time, while I'm making good money and living comfortably. Started tipping her extra, like $20 on a $15 meal, offering to help when she mentioned being short on rent or her car needing repairs. You don't have to do that, she'd say, but she never refused the help. We started talking more each time I came in. She'd sit with me during her breaks, tell me about her day, ask about my work. I told her about the heavy machinery I worked on, dozers, excavators, dump trucks, and she seemed genuinely interested. Said it was so cool that I could fix things with my hands. After about 2 months of this, I finally got the balls to ask her out. She said yes immediately, seemed excited about it. We went to dinner at this nice Italian place, then caught a movie. She was great company, funny, easy to talk to, laughed at my jokes even when they weren't that funny. The chemistry was obvious from day one. She'd touch my arm when she laughed, sit close to me in the movie theater, gave me this amazing kiss at the end of the night that made me feel like I was in high school again. We started dating seriously pretty quick after that. Within like 6 weeks, she was staying over at my place most nights. Her lease was coming up and she was trying to decide what to do about housing. The apartment with roommates was stressful, she said. Too much drama, too expensive, not a good environment for someone trying to get their life together. Being the nice guy I was, I suggested she could stay with me temporarily while she figured things out, just until she found a better place, saved up some money, got back on her feet. My house had plenty of space, and honestly, I liked having her around. Made the place feel more like a home instead of just where I slept between work shifts. That temporary situation turned into 3 fucking years. Here's where I was a complete idiot, and looking back, I want to punch myself in the face for being so blind. About 2 weeks after Jessica moved in with me, she quit her waitressing job at Murphy's. Her reason? The hours were too stressful, and the customers were assholes. She'd had this table of business guys who were rude to her, didn't tip well, made inappropriate comments. Her manager didn't back her up when she complained. The whole environment was toxic and bad for her mental health. I need to take some time to figure out what I really want to do with my life, she said. I can't think clearly when I'm stressed all the time about that place. I was making $78,000 a year at the time, overtime opportunities all the time, so I figured whatever. I could support both of us for a while. She'd find something soon enough. Maybe something better than waitressing, more suited to her talents. Except she never did. For 3 solid years, Jessica lived off me completely. And I mean completely. I paid for everything. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, her car insurance, her phone bill, clothes, entertainment, everything. She contributed absolutely nothing financially to our relationship. Her daily routine was a joke. She'd sleep until 11 a.m. or noon while I was up at 5:30 a.m. getting ready for work. I'd come home at 6 p.m. exhausted from working on heavy machinery all day, dirty, sweaty, sometimes injured from dealing with hydraulic systems and diesel engines, and she'd be on the couch in pajamas watching Netflix. "How was your day, baby?" she'd ask, not bothering to get up or pause her show. "Busy. How was yours?" "Oh, you know. Relaxing." I applied to a few jobs online, but she never had interviews, never got calls back, never even seemed to be seriously looking. She'd spend my money like it was water. Online shopping constantly. Clothes, makeup, shoes, random shit she didn't need. Amazon packages showing up every other day. Designer purses that cost more than I made in a week. Expensive skincare products, workout clothes she never used, home decor items that just cluttered up my house. When I'd come home tired and ask what was for dinner, she'd look at me like I was crazy. "I don't know. What do you want to make?" she'd say. "There's stuff in the fridge." So I'd work a 10-hour shift, then come home and cook dinner while she watched TV. She never offered to help, never suggested we order takeout, with her money obviously, since she didn't have any, never seemed to consider that maybe the person who'd been working all day shouldn't also have to handle all the domestic stuff. Anytime I brought up her getting a job, she had excuses ready. The economy was bad, and nobody was hiring. She was overqualified for retail and restaurant jobs, but underqualified for office work. She was looking into going back to school, but needed time to research programs and figure out financial aid. She was having anxiety issues and wasn't ready for the stress of employment. Always some bullshit reason why she couldn't contribute anything to our household, but she sure as hell had opinions about how I should spend my money. Wanted me to buy a newer truck because my 2018 F-150 was getting old. Wanted to upgrade all the furniture because what I had was bachelor pad stuff. Wanted to take expensive vacations to places like Cancun and Hawaii. When I explained that we couldn't afford that kind of stuff, especially with only one income, she'd get pouty and passive aggressive. All my friends' boyfriends treat them better, she'd say. Sarah's boyfriend just bought her a $500 purse for no reason. Ashley's boyfriend took her to Europe last summer. Well, maybe their boyfriends aren't supporting their girlfriends' entire lives while they sit at home doing nothing, I should have said. But I didn't, because I thought I loved her and wanted her to be happy. I started picking up every overtime shift I could get. Worked Saturdays, some Sundays, stayed late during the week, anything to bring in extra money so Jessica could have the things she wanted. Meanwhile, she still wasn't working, still spending money like crazy, still treating my house like her personal resort. The worst part was how entitled she became about everything. She'd invite friends over to my house without asking, using my Netflix account, eating my food, drinking my drinks. When I mentioned it bothered me that she didn't check with me first, she'd act like I was being unreasonable. "It's not like you're doing anything else tonight," she'd say. "Why are you being so antisocial? My friends think you don't like them." Antisocial. For wanting some peace and quiet in my own house after working 12 hours on heavy machinery. She'd also make plans for us without consulting me. "We're going to dinner with my sister tomorrow night," she'd announce. Or, "I told Ashley we'd go to her party on Saturday." "Never would you like to?" Or, "Are you free to?" Just assumptions that I'd go along with whatever she wanted. When I complained about this, she'd get defensive and turn it around on me. "I'm just trying to have a social life. You work all the time and never want to do anything fun. I'm sorry for trying to include you in things." But I was working all the time to support her lazy ass. And the fun things always cost money that I was earning while she sat at home. The sex was good, which I think kept me from seeing how bad everything else was. Jessica was enthusiastic in bed, tried new things, made me feel like a stud. But looking back, I think even that was calculated. Keep me happy physically so I wouldn't question the financial and emotional imbalance in our relationship. I should have kicked her lazy, entitled ass out after the first few months. But I thought I loved her. Thought she'd eventually get her act together and become a real partner. Thought this was just how relationships worked. Guys provide, girls receive. Spoiler alert, that's not how healthy relationships work. I was being used by a professional gold digger, and I was too inexperienced and too nice to see it. After about a year of Jessica living with me, I decided it was time for her to meet my dad. She'd been asking about him, saying it was important to her to have a good relationship with my family. Dad had been asking when he'd get to meet this girl I'd been talking about. I should have noticed the first red flag immediately. Jessica, who usually couldn't be bothered to get dressed up for anything, including dates with me, spent 3 hours getting ready to meet my father. Full makeup, hair curled and styled, tight jeans that showed off her ass, low-cut top that displayed her cleavage. When I asked why she was so dressed up, she said she wanted to make a good impression, and that it was important to her that my family liked her. "You look great," I told her, "but maybe something a little less revealing?" "It's just dinner at my dad's house." She got defensive immediately. "What's wrong with how I look? Are you embarrassed of me? I thought you'd want your girlfriend to look nice when meeting your father." So I dropped it. But something felt off. Dad came over to my place for dinner. I grilled steaks, made baked potatoes, the whole thing. From the moment he walked in, Jessica was different. She wasn't acting like herself at all. Normally, Jessica was pretty quiet around new people, especially older men. She told me she had some issues with authority figures because of her relationship with her own father. But with my dad, she was suddenly chatty, charming, animated. She was hanging on his every word, laughing at all his stories, asking detailed questions about his business. She'd never shown any interest in my work. When I'd try to tell her about my day, she'd zone out or change the subject. But suddenly she was fascinated by plumbing contractors and construction projects. "That's so interesting, Robert," she kept saying. "You're so smart to build a business like that from nothing. It must take incredible intelligence and determination." She was laying it on thick, too thick. My dad was eating it up, of course. He's always liked attention, especially from attractive women, and Jessica was giving him her undivided focus. He started telling longer stories, showing off more, making jokes to see her laugh. "So this is the girl who's got my boy acting all domesticated," he said at one point, winking at Jessica. "Must be something special about you." Jessica blushed and did this weird giggle I'd never heard before. "Oh, Mike's amazing. I'm so lucky to have found someone so hardworking and stable." The way she said stable, like that was the most attractive quality a man could have, should have been another red flag. During dinner, she kept complimenting Dad on everything. His watch, his truck, his house, his business success. Asked him for advice about career stuff. Said she'd love to hear more about entrepreneurship sometime. She was treating him like some kind of celebrity instead of just her boyfriend's father. The weirdest part was how she kept touching her hair and adjusting her top when she talked to him. Body language I'd never seen her use with me or anyone else. After Dad left, I mentioned how different she'd acted. Different how? She asked innocently. I don't know, just more flirty than usual. You were really laying on the charm. She got defensive immediately. I was being polite and respectful. Isn't that what you wanted? For me to get along with your family? I thought it went well. It did go well. Just seemed like you were trying really hard to impress him. Of course I was trying to impress him. He's your father. His opinion of me matters because it affects our relationship. I guess that made sense, but something still felt off about the whole thing. Over the next few months, Dad started coming around more often. He'd never been the type to just drop by unannounced, but suddenly he was showing up every week or two with some excuse. Wanted to borrow a tool, needed help moving something, thought he'd check on how the house was holding up. Always when Jessica was home, I noticed. Never when she was out running errands or whatever. He'd also started offering to help with stuff around the house. Things he'd never cared about before. Wanted to help me install new light fixtures. Offered to look at my plumbing. Suggested we work on landscaping projects together. It'll be good father-son time, he'd say. Plus, Jessica mentioned she'd love to see the yard fixed up. Jessica had mentioned that? When? She'd never said anything to me about wanting yard work done, but I was happy to spend time with my dad, and if he wanted to help improve my house, why not? We spent several weekends working on various projects. Building a deck, installing a new bathroom vanity, planting trees and shrubs. Jessica would always be around during these projects, bringing us drinks, asking questions, complimenting our work. She'd wear these little outfits, shorts and tank tops that showed off her body, claiming she was just trying to stay cool while helping out. I started noticing how my dad looked at her during these times. Not just casual glances, but lingering stares when he thought I wasn't paying attention, especially when she'd bend over to pick something up or reach for something high up. When I mentioned it to Jessica later, she brushed it off. Older men just appreciate beauty more than guys our age, she said. It's harmless. He's probably just remembering what it was like to be young. That should have been red flag number 50, but I was still in denial about what was really happening. After 2 years of Jessica living with me and living off me, I decided it was time to propose. She'd been dropping hints constantly, showing me her friends' engagement rings on social media, talking about weddings she'd seen on TV, leaving bridal magazines around the house. Ashley's ring is so beautiful, she'd say, showing me her phone. She's so lucky. I can't wait to be engaged. The hint dropping was about as subtle as a brick to the face. I started saving up for a ring, doing research on what she might like. Jessica had expensive taste in everything else, so I figured I'd need to spend serious money to make her happy. I ended up dropping $7,500 on a 1.5-carat diamond solitaire from a local jewelry store. Way more than I should have spent, but Jessica had made comments about her friend's tiny ring and how embarrassing it would be to have something small. I just think an engagement ring should reflect how much someone loves you, she'd said. Like, if a guy really loves you, he'll want to show it with something beautiful. Translation: buy me an expensive ring or I'll be disappointed. I planned the proposal for our 2-year anniversary, took her to this nice lakeside restaurant about an hour away, got a table overlooking the water, waited for sunset, had the ring in my pocket, sweating bullets the whole dinner. When dessert came, I got down on one knee right there in the restaurant and asked her to marry me. She started crying happy tears, said yes immediately, kissed me in front of everyone. The whole restaurant applauded. It was perfect. She immediately started taking pictures of the ring, posting on social media, calling friends and family. Within an hour, everyone in her contact list knew we were engaged. That's when Jessica's true colors really started showing. The wedding planning became her full-time obsession, and everything had to be expensive. She wanted a $40,000 wedding, venue, flowers, dress, photographer, catering, the works. When I explained that we couldn't afford that kind of money, especially with only one income, she threw tantrums like a child. "This is the most important day of my life," she'd scream. "Don't you want me to be happy? Don't you love me enough to give me the wedding I deserve?" She'd show me pictures of other people's weddings, her friends, people from social media, celebrities, and talk about how she wanted something just as nice. "All my friends are having beautiful weddings," she'd say. "I don't want to be embarrassed by something cheap and small." I started working overtime every chance I got. Weekends, holidays, any extra shifts available. I was pulling 60 to 70-hour weeks, coming home exhausted, just trying to make enough money to pay for this wedding she just had to have. Meanwhile, she still wasn't working. Still spending money on clothes and makeup and whatever else she wanted. Still sleeping until noon and doing nothing productive all day. But the weirdest part was how her relationship with my dad changed after we got engaged. Before the engagement, she'd been friendly but not overly interested in him. After, suddenly she was constantly asking his opinion on wedding stuff, wanting his input on venues and flowers and decorations. Robert has such good taste, she'd say. He really understands what makes things classy and elegant. Since when did my dad know anything about wedding planning? The guy had been married once, 25 years ago, and it was a simple ceremony at a courthouse, but Jessica treated him like some kind of wedding expert. She'd call him for advice, ask him to look at venue websites with her, get his opinion on color schemes and menu options. Dad started showing up even more often after we got engaged, always with some excuse about helping with wedding planning. He'd come over when I was at work and spend hours with Jessica, researching venues online, or discussing the guest list, or looking at decoration ideas. When I'd ask Jessica what they'd talked about, she'd give vague answers. Just boring wedding stuff, baby. We looked at some venues, talked about the timeline, nothing you'd be interested in. But I was interested. It was my wedding, too. Why was my dad more involved in planning it than I was? Jessica's behavior started getting weird in other ways, too. She'd take long showers right before I got home from work every day. Started doing her own laundry instead of making me do it like she had before. Got secretive about her phone, taking it with her everywhere, and never leaving it out where I might see it. The gym obsession started around this time, too. Jessica, who'd never exercised a day in her life beyond walking from the couch to the kitchen, suddenly joined an expensive gym and hired a personal trainer. With my money, of course. I want to look perfect for the wedding, she'd say. Don't you want a hot wife? She'd spend 2 to 3 hours at the gym every day, coming home all sweaty and energized, talking about her workouts and her trainer and how much stronger she was getting. Her body was already great. That's part of what attracted me to her in the first place. But suddenly, she was doing squats and deadlifts and posting gym selfies on social media like she was training for the Olympics. It was suspicious as hell because Jessica had always been lazy about everything else. Girl couldn't be bothered to do dishes or laundry, but suddenly she's motivated to work out 3 hours a day? Please. The final 6 months before everything exploded were filled with weird shit that I kept telling myself was just wedding stress or normal relationship stuff. But looking back, the signs were everywhere. Jessica's schedule became completely unpredictable. She'd say she was going wedding dress shopping, but come home with no bags and no stories about what she'd tried on. Say she was meeting with the caterer, but then not know basic details about the menu when I asked. Her stories never quite added up, but when I questioned her, she'd get defensive. Why are you interrogating me? She'd say. I'm trying to plan our wedding and you're acting like I'm lying about everything? My dad's behavior was getting weird too. He'd call our house phone during the day when he knew I was at work, asking to talk to Jessica about wedding planning stuff. When I asked Jessica what they discussed, she'd give the same vague answers. Just details about the reception, seating arrangements, nothing important. But why was he calling her instead of me? Why didn't he want to discuss wedding plans when I was around? I started paying more attention to little things. Jessica would get text messages at weird hours, like 11 p.m. or early in the morning, and quickly hide her phone when I tried to see who they were from. Just my sister, she'd say. Or just Ashley asking about wedding stuff. But she'd delete the messages immediately instead of letting them sit in her phone like she used to. Her car would be warm when she claimed she'd been home all day. She'd have receipts from restaurants and stores in places she claimed she hadn't been. Her gas tank would be lower than it should be for someone who supposedly only drove to the gym and grocery store. The breaking point should have been the day I came home early from work and found some really weird shit. I'd finished a job ahead of schedule and decided to surprise Jessica, maybe take her out to lunch. Her car was in the driveway, but when I came in the house, I could hear the shower running upstairs. It was 2:30 in the afternoon. Weird time for a shower, especially since she usually showered in the morning. I called out to her, but she didn't answer. Probably couldn't hear me over the water. So I went upstairs to let her know I was home. The bathroom door was closed. Shower definitely running, but when I tried the handle, it was locked. Jessica never locked the bathroom door when she showered. We'd been living together for over 2 years. Why would she suddenly start locking the door? I knocked and called her name. She didn't answer for like 30 seconds, then finally called out, "Just a minute," in this weird, panicked voice. Another minute passed before she opened the door, wrapped in a towel, hair barely wet. "Oh, you scared me," she said. "I didn't hear you come in." "Why was the door locked?" I asked. "Was it? I didn't realize. I must have bumped the lock by accident." But her hair wasn't wet enough for someone who'd been showering for however long the water had been running. And she seemed nervous, jumpy, like she'd been caught doing something. When I asked where she'd been that day, she said she'd been home all morning, just decided to take an afternoon shower to relax and freshen up. But her car engine was still warm when I touched the hood. Someone who'd been home all day wouldn't have a warm engine at 2:30 p.m. Another time, I found a receipt in her purse for lunch at Romano's Steakhouse, an expensive place across town that we'd never been to together. When I asked about it, she claimed it was from weeks ago, and she'd just forgotten to throw it away. But the date on the receipt was from 2 days earlier, and Romano's Wazin Steakhouse cost like $50 plus per person. How the hell was Jessica affording $50 lunches when she didn't have any money? I started having this sick feeling in my stomach every time I thought about Jessica and my dad. The way she acted around him, the way he looked at her, all the wedding planning they were doing together, her weird behavior and suspicious schedule. But I pushed those thoughts down because they were too horrible to consider. Jessica loved me. She'd said yes when I proposed. She was planning our wedding. We were going to spend our lives together. My dad would never betray me like that. He'd raised me, taught me everything I knew about being a man, always said family was the most important thing. The idea that they could be together was so disgusting and impossible that I refused to even consider it seriously. I should have trusted my gut. I should have confronted them both, demanded answers, investigated further. But I was scared of what I might find out, so I convinced myself I was being paranoid and jealous for no reason. God, I was so fucking naive. The day that changed everything was a Saturday in March. I remember it perfectly, because it was the day my entire life exploded, and I learned what the two people I trusted most were really like. I was working overtime at Morrison Construction. We had this huge deadline on a highway project, and the state was breathing down our necks to get it finished. Emergency weekend work, all hands on deck, overtime pay at time and a half. I'd been there since 6 a.m. working on a massive excavator that had thrown a hydraulic line. Jessica knew I'd be working all day. I'd told her the night before that I probably wouldn't be home until 8 or 9 p.m., maybe later if we ran into complications. She said she was planning a girls' day with her sister Amy, shopping, lunch, maybe getting their nails done. Typical weekend stuff. Around 1 p.m., we got the excavator running ahead of schedule. The replacement parts we'd ordered came in earlier than expected, and the repair went smoother than anticipated. My foreman, Dave, looked around at the crew and said, "Hell, boys, let's call it a day. We're ahead of schedule and it's Saturday. Go home to your families." I was exhausted but happy. Unexpected free time, and I'd still get paid for the full day. Decided to surprise Jessica, maybe take her out for a nice lunch if she was back from her sister's day. The drive home was normal, listening to country music, thinking about maybe firing up the grill later, and having a relaxing evening. I pulled into my driveway around 1:45 p.m. and immediately knew something was wrong. Jessica's white Honda Accord was parked in its usual spot, which was weird since she was supposed to be out with her sister. But parked behind it, blocking her in, was my dad's black F-150 King Ranch. I'd know that truck anywhere. Custom wheels, tinted windows, Chen's Plumbing logo on the side. What the hell was my dad doing at my house in the middle of the day on a Saturday? I sat in my truck for a minute, trying to think of innocent explanations. Maybe Jessica had come home sick and called my dad for help with something? Maybe there was a plumbing emergency and she'd called him instead of a regular plumber. Maybe Amy had canceled their plans and Dad just happened to stop by. But deep in my gut, I knew something was very wrong. I got out of my truck and walked to the front door, using my key to let myself in quietly. The house was quiet except for sounds coming from upstairs, from the direction of my bedroom. Sounds I recognized. Sounds that made my stomach drop and my hands start shaking. My first instinct was to charge upstairs screaming, but something made me stop. Maybe it was self-preservation. Maybe it was shock, but I found myself pulling out my phone and opening the camera app. If what I thought was happening was actually happening, I was going to need proof, evidence, something that couldn't be denied or explained away. I took off my work boots so I wouldn't make noise on the stairs and quietly made my way up to the second floor. The sounds got clearer and more obvious with each step. There was no mistaking what I was hearing. My bedroom door was wide open. They weren't even trying to hide what they were doing. And there they were. My dad, the man who'd raised me after Mom died, who'd taught me how to change oil and throw a football, who I'd looked up to my entire life, was in my bed with my fiancée. The woman I was supposed to marry in 10 weeks, who I'd been supporting for 3 years, who was wearing the engagement ring I'd spent $7,500 on, was on top of him. But it wasn't just mechanical, emotionless cheating. She was completely into it. more into it than she'd ever been with me. She was making sounds I'd never heard her make, saying things that made me want to vomit. God, you feel so much better than him, she was moaning. I can't believe I wasted 3 years pretending to be satisfied with that boy when I could have had a real man this whole time. My dad was grabbing her ass with both hands, telling her how much tighter and hotter she was than girls her age usually are. They were talking about me like I was some pathetic loser while fucking in the bed I'd bought, in the house I owned, with money I'd earned working 60-hour weeks. He has no idea, my dad was saying. Poor kid thinks he's getting married to a faithful woman. He's so naive, Jessica laughed. He actually believes I'm at the gym 3 hours a day. As if I'd waste time exercising when I could be here with you. They were laughing about how stupid I was, how easy it had been to fool me, how pathetic I was for working overtime to pay for a wedding to a woman who was fucking my own father. I recorded for about 3 minutes, making sure I got clear shots of both their faces, clear audio of their voices, undeniable evidence of what they were doing. The whole time, my hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear. I wasn't heartbroken or devastated. I was absolutely fucking furious. When I'd recorded enough evidence to destroy both of them, I cleared my throat loudly. Having fun? The scrambling was pathetic. Jessica screaming and diving under the covers. My dad jumping up, grabbing for his clothes. But I kept the camera rolling. Turn that off, Jessica shrieked. This isn't what it looks like. Really? I said, amazed at how calm I sounded. Because it looks like you're fucking my dad in my bed while I'm working to pay for your wedding. My dad tried to take control. Son, let's talk about this like adults. Adults don't fuck their son's fiancée. I cut him off. Get your shit and get out, both of you. Jessica was crying now. Baby, please, it just happened. It was a mistake. Just happened? How long has this been going on? Months? Since we got engaged? She couldn't answer, just kept sobbing. I looked at my dad putting on his pants. Get out. You're dead to me. It took them 10 minutes to get dressed and leave. I sat downstairs the whole time, planning my revenge. Over the next week, while they kept trying to contact me, I was busy. See, I knew things about my dad's business that could destroy him. City contracts worth $800,000 yearly that had morality clauses. Tax issues he'd been hiding. Safety violations I'd helped cover up. I also reached out to friends. One worked for the city inspector's office. Another was a newspaper reporter. Someone else worked for the state tax department. But I let them think they'd gotten away with it first. After a week, they got desperate. Jessica had been kicked out by her parents. My dad was getting nervous. They showed up at my work together. Mike, my dad called out. We need to talk. Jessica spoke first. Look, we've all made mistakes, but Robert and I want to make this right. He's prepared to give you $40,000 to help you start fresh. We're in love, my dad added. We want to get married, and we'd like your blessing. The audacity was incredible. They wanted my blessing after betraying me. Plus, Jessica said, Robert's going to take care of me properly now. We're looking at houses, talking about starting a family. I'll finally have the stable life I deserve. I pretended to consider it. Let me think about it. How about we meet tomorrow at Romano's Steakhouse to discuss details? They looked relieved. The next evening, they showed up dressed like they were celebrating. I was waiting with a manila envelope. Before we discuss anything, I said, handing it to Jessica, I have something for you. She opened it and pulled out high-quality printouts from the video, both their faces clearly visible. What is this? She whispered. Insurance. See, while you two were playing house, I've been busy. That's when my friend Dave from the city inspector's office appeared at our table. Mr. Chen, we need to discuss some irregularities in your city contracts. Safety violations, material substitutions, cost inflation. We're opening a full investigation. All contracts are suspended immediately. My dad's face went gray. What's happening? What's happening is Robert's about to lose 60% of his business income, I said. Those city contracts were worth about $800,000 a year, weren't they? Jessica was panicking. What else did you do? I sent copies of our little movie to everyone in both your contact lists. Friends, family, co-workers, church members. I wanted everyone to know what kind of people you are. She gasped. You didn't. I also contacted the state tax department about those unreported cash payments, Dad. They're auditing your books. Something about $150,000 in unreported income? My dad sat down hard. You're destroying everything. You destroyed it when you fucked my fiancé. I turned to Jessica. And you're going to get a real job and pay me back the $23,000 I spent supporting you for 3 years. I don't have that money. Then start working 40 hours a week like everyone else. I stood to leave. Oh, and Dad, you're signing over that lake house cabin. Consider it therapy money. That's worth $200,000. Should have thought about that before you betrayed your son. As I walked out, Jessica was begging my dad to fix everything, and he was realizing he'd lost his business, reputation, and relationship with his son for a gold digger who'd dump him once his money was gone.